Hello VC, another fat bearded man talking about records here, or as my mother calls me, Hedley. This is my contribution to Memphis Vinyl Gym and the missus, their competition or thread called Show Me Your Royals. So this is all about artists that have been given the honour of King, Queen, Duke, things like that. So, without further ado, let's get on with it. So I'm going to start with, because I do country music most of the time, I'm going to start with the kings and the queens of country music. So let's start with the queens. Now, if you check around the internet, there are three people really who get called the queen of country music, and they are Kitty Wells, Loretta Lynn, and Dolly Parton. Out of the three, what am I going to go for? Who am I going to say? Kitty Wells, the earliest. Oh, I think my missus is home. Hello. Say hello to the people of the VC.
Hello, people of the VC.
Ah, see, she does exist. I'm not a sad old loner that lives on my own. Proof, if needed. Right, so that's another fat bearded man talking about records and the missus. Right, so Kitty Wells, the earliest. Wasn't God who made Honky Tonk Heroes? Wasn't God who made Honky Tonk Angels? Sorry. So that one's that one. That was her earliest. Then Loretta Lynn came along in the 60s, and probably she was the one that would produce songs like Fist City, The Pill. She was sort of dealing with subjects that perhaps other female artists weren't doing at the time. And Dolly Parton, well, Dolly Parton speaks for herself. I mean, she is an institution unto herself. But I'm going to go with Loretta Lynn. Just the writing, the voice, the songs. She's the package, the queen of country music. What about the kings? Who are the kings? Okay, so the earliest to the latest. So again, we've got three artists that are generally called the king of country music, starting with Roy Acuff, one of the earliest from the 1930s, the first star really of the Grand Ole Opry. Then we've got George Jones. The voice, the possum as he's called as well. And then more up to date, George Strait. So all of them, the kings of country music. Interestingly enough, actually, George Jones, when he first appeared on the scene, was known as the Crown Prince of country music, i.e. taking over, from Roy Acuff. So who am I going to put as my king of country music? Well, I'm a bit of a traditionalist, so I'm going to go with Roy Acuff. Love the guy. This is some great music he produced. Right. Connected to country, we've got Bob Wills, the king of country, the king of Western swing. And I said in one of my previous videos that actually he got into a bit of a battle with Spade Cooley about who was going to be the king of Western swing, and they had a battle of the bands to see who was going to take the honour. Spade Cooley claimed the win and said that he would be the one, but actually, as we all know, Bob Wills, he's still the king. Nearer to home, the king of skiffle, Lonnie Donegan. Skiffle, for those of you who don't know, is a kind of a version of the American sort of folk and blues artists like Leadbelly, Woody Guthrie, that sort of started in the late 40s, early 50s. Actually, I did some digging and found out that actually skiffle was first. It came from America. African American musicians who would make their own instruments or use whatever they had, playing that sort of early folk stuff, and it sort of transferred over to Britain. And some of the big names in 60s rock and pop started out. We all know the Quarrymen, the Beatles' first sort of band, as it were. They were skiffle. Who else? Jimmy Page, Roger Daltrey, Van Morrison. There's an endless list of artists from the 60s. So anyway, but Lonnie Donegan, and he was probably most famous for My Old Man's the Dustman. He had a big hit. Kind of got killed off really, but when rock and roll came in, did skiffle. But still, the king of skiffle, Lonnie Donegan. Okay, jazzy stuff. We've got Benny Goodman, the king of swing. Jazz, yeah, you see a lot of jazz on the VC. But earlier jazz doesn't really get a look in. It's all sort of post 50s spiritual jazz, your Thelonious Monks and your Miles Davis, and more modern stuff. So I'm going to put a bit of a claim to some of this earlier stuff. Jazz, like swing. You know, I like Western swing, so I like swing as well. And Benny Goodman. If you listen to his recording of Sing, 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 I mean, that is just an outstanding recording. Certainly the king of swing. A couple more to go. This is a twofer, this one. You got a double whammy. This is Harry Belafonte, otherwise known as the King of Calypso, and Miriam Makeba. Sometimes known as the Queen of African music, perhaps more often called Mama Africa. And this is a beautiful album that they recorded together. In fact, this is, although he's the King of Calypso, this isn't a particularly Calypso album. In fact, it isn't a Calypso album. It's an African folk tunes album. And the song Malaika, translated as My Angel, is absolutely beautiful. If you haven't heard that, the duet between these two, it's beautiful. So, Harry Belafonte, the king of Calypso, and Miriam Makeba, the queen of African music, or Mama Africa. Staying in Africa, we've got the king of the desert blues, Ali Farka Touré, from Mali, born near Timbuktu, a stone's throw from the Sahara Desert. He would become influenced by John Lee Hooker, a blues artist from America like that, and he saw a link between his traditional musics of Mali, and he would create this incredible, evocative blend of the two. If you haven't checked him out, he's probably most famous for his Grammy nominated or winning, I can't remember which, album with Ry Cooder called Talking Timbuktu. Really worth checking out. There he is. That's him playing the blues in the desert. The king of desert blues, Ali Farka Touré. Couple more. Scott Joplin, the king of ragtime. I don't really know any other ragtime artists, unfortunately. That shows my lack of knowledge. But this is interesting. This is a recording of his. It's actually him playing. It's on piano rolls that were played by him. So he would sit at a kind of a pianola type thing and play, and it would be recorded onto sheets of paper, which then would be sold off to people to play on their pianolas. And I think that's what this is. I remember James Griffiths showing a record a while back of pianola music. Anyway, so Scott Joplin, the king of ragtime. One more to go. Solomon Burke, the king of rock and soul. He didn't really like the term R&B. He thought it was lewd. He thought it was a bit dirty. Well, considering he had over 14 children, I'm not sure he's one to really preach. But he said there's no rock without soul, and there's no soul without rock. And there he is. This is a later album of his, early 80s, 79, I can't remember now. Yeah. But 81, I think this was produced. It's got a really great version of Hold On I'm Coming, with a real driving bass line and drums. But yeah, the king of rock and soul, Solomon Burke. Okay, and I'm going to add my own one here. This is something that I think Jim said you could do. So I think he might have been called this, but I'm going to go with Hal Gelb. This is his album Snow Angel Like You, which is a collaboration with a gospel group. But I'm gonna say he is the king of modern Americana. Active since the mid '80s with bands like Giant Sand, the band of Blackie Ranchette. What other names has he recorded under? Opus 8, OP8, yeah. And anyway, Giant Sand, he's just folded, but he continues on, and he truly is a legend, really, and he deserves that honour of the king of modern Americana. So there you go, that's my collection of kings, queens. I wish I had more princes, dukes, viscounts, things like that, but hey, you show what you've got, haven't you? So anyway, thanks to Jim and the missus. It was a really good idea. I've enjoyed putting these together. So until the next time I see you, bye bye for now.